topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Churchill said, "Those who fail to learn from history are condemned to repeat it." Kevin Hallinan believes that certainly applies to business. Welcome to Winning Business Radio, here at W4CY Radio. That's W4CY.com. And now, your host, Kevin Hallinan.
Thanks for joining in again today. I'm Kevin Hallinan, and welcome back to Winning Business TV and Radio on W4CY.com, streaming live on Talk4TV.com, in addition to Facebook at Winning Business Radio, as well as, of course, we're available in podcast after the live show on tons of outlets, including YouTube, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple, pretty much wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. The mission of this show, Winning Business Radio and TV, as regular listeners and viewers know, is to offer insights and advice to help people avoid the mistakes of others, right? To learn best practices, the how-tos, the what-tos, the what-not-tos, to be challenged and certainly to be inspired by the successes of others. But, you know, as I say every week, virtually every successful person I've ever had a chance to talk to has had some form of failure in their lives and careers. So while we all have to get our knees skinned once in a while, I'm driven to keep those scrapes from needing major surgery. Let's endeavor to learn from history, our own usually, so we don't have to repeat it. Today, my guest is Jon Kowanetz, founder and principal of Pathways Coaching and Consulting, public speaker, and author of Life Without Crutches. Here's his bio. Jon Kowanetz is the lead pathfinder for Pathways Coaching and Consulting. He works with business owners and individuals who want to grow past where they are. He helps them recapture the enjoyment and confidence that they'll succeed after many have approached, if not experienced, burnout. Jon is a born entrepreneur, having tested out many of his ideas and inventions during the first 2 decades of his life. His first official business began in the 2-car garage of his Mesa, Arizona home when he launched Handcrafted Car Audio in July of 2007. As Jon tells it, back then he had absolutely no idea what it would take to grow a business or where that path might lead him. All he knew was that he loved the work and it had become his passion and livelihood over the past 7 years, and he wanted to do it on his own for his community in a way that nobody else was. And it was that drive to be unique, to be the best, and to serve others that fueled the slow and steady growth that created a solid foundation upon which he built a multiple award-winning business over that next 15 years before selling it profitably in August of 2022. Handcrafted was profitable in 14 of those 15 years, 9 of which saw more than a 10% year-over-year net profit increase, provided for the families of some of the best in the industry, touted a near 5-star rating on every platform, and was proudly described by many clients as not the cheapest, but the best in the valley. However, it was the lessons that he learned during that time that were more important, setting a business up for success from the start, with proper policies and procedures, empowering employees to operate with autonomy, achieving company goals their own way, but within a defined framework. Lessons about the efficacy of properly qualifying new customers, ensuring that their problems were solved satisfactorily and for a price that's fair to both parties. At last, but far from least, the critical lessons of taking the time to organize the books, optimize net profit, and leverage both tangible and intangible assets to maximize the overall value of the business. But the story goes on. Jon had business success, but had become emotionally disconnected, overweight, and hungover, and found himself reading divorce papers that he had just been served. Like so many others that had come before him, he had poured so much of himself into building his professional life that there was little energy left to sustain a healthy personal life, and so it slowly decayed. In the years that have passed since then, he's lost and kept off the extra 60 pounds that his bad habits had kept on for so long. He worked with family, therapists, and AA to figure out why he had been turning to alcohol to solve life problems in the first place. He's rebuilt relationships with his daughter, family, and friends that had withered through disconnection. Jon's a father of one, a lover of music, a climber of mountains, a speaker, and writer. Realizing his childhood dreams, Jon now writes and speaks about his experiences from the stage at events across North America. combining decades of professional retail sales and customer service experience with self-tested methods for personal improvement and an undying dream to be a rock star. Love that. Jon's engagements are educational, enlightening, entertaining, and empowering, leaving attendees wanting and able to change their professional and personal lives. I met Jon while I was speaking at an industry event. He was as well. And in fact, some of you may recall that I had Jon on this program as a guest back in the fall of 2019. We had a really good conversation, which some of you may want to go back and listen to. Since the writing of his book, Life Without Crutches, I wanted to give him the opportunity to tell us about his life and journey and the lessons that caused him to share his compelling and deeply personal story. Jon, welcome back to Winning Business Radio, now Winning Business TV as well.
Thank you, man. That was awesome. I was just sitting there like listening to you recite that whole thing, and it was very powerful and invigorating and reaffirming, for a lot of things I've been thinking about lately and a lot of things that I've been doing. So,
well, I'm glad. I tweaked it slightly, but everything's true.
I noticed, but hey, that's all good. I think that you know me well enough to be able to do something like that, and it's all good.
All right, so let's get some background. Tell everybody where you grew up.
Where I grew up?
Yep.
Gilbert, Arizona.
Gilbert, Arizona. And
yeah, it's just a suburb of Phoenix.
Okay. And how did you get into the 12-volt industry, or car audio, as we like to call it, for listeners to understand and viewers to understand? How'd you get into that business, and how did it become a passion?
I mean, I got into the business because I got my first car when I was about 15 years old. I bought it a little bit prior to, being able to legally drive so that I could make it mine, fix it up a little bit. And
Cool.
One of the first things I did to it was have a sound system put into it. Of course, the car couldn't even reliably shift out of second gear all the time, but I had subwoofers, because music is life. And I always loved music, 100%. The two passions of mine have always been music and tinkering with things. I was that kid that would take things apart just to see how they work, so I got music, I got subwoofers in the car, and then when I had to get rid of that car because it eventually didn't go into second gear at all, I removed that stuff from the vehicle myself, installed it into my next vehicle, and realized I can do this. And then I started doing it for friends and family, and next thing you know, I got a job at a local shop in town when I was a teenager, and just kind of took off from there. I got more my position grew from there, from an entry-level installer to a full-time installer to a supervisor, manager, and I worked as working at dealerships, installing products on cars on dealership lots. I worked at custom shops. I worked at big box stores. I did everything, really. Every role that you could really imagine in the industry, I did. And then I would say that my passion for it was never about cars. I'm not a car person. I don't really care about cars very much. It was about music. It was about the fabrication. It was about the difficulty of making it all come together and recreating good, high quality music in a difficult environment like a car. But the real passion for it really came when I started Handcrafted in 2007, because then it was not only am I using all of my skills to recreate music in a car and overcome the challenges that entails, now I'm using all of my skills to build a business that does that and all the challenges that entails. And that's really where the passion came into play, for sure.
And I've seen a couple of them. Your company, Handcrafted, became an award-winning retail shop. Tell us about how it felt to achieve that level of success, and then you ended up selling that business, and tell us the why behind that.
Well, how long you got?
We have an hour. No, we got. I know. But there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to unpack,
sure.
and I want to get through as much of it as we can. But
I'll be brief. I'll be brief. So the awards, what it felt like to win the awards, pretty incredible. We won several over the course of the 15 years that we were in business. The first one was very meaningful for me. That was an award called Installer of the Year. It was very meaningful for me because I've won that and was awarded that at a show that I wasn't able to be present for because my daughter had just recently been born and she had to have open heart surgery when she was 7 days old. So actually, the night of the award ceremony was the night before her surgery. So there was no way I was going to go to the award ceremony. So one of my friends named Todd, who recently passed away, accepted the award on my behalf. So it was really, really touching. And it one of those things that came at a moment when like I really needed a boost, you know?
Yeah.
So that one was really good. We won Retailer of the Year, which was really important to me. That one was 3 years later in 2013. That was really important to me because that was like a team effort. That was like all of us, what we built, you know, what we did. We won an award for Most Improved Location, which was great because we did a lot of work to make that happen. So the awards, there were some other ones. The awards were a really nice, well-timed. Every single time it was like a well-timed award to show, hey, you're doing something good, you know, and we as an industry recognize that you're doing something good, and we want to show you, you know, that that's the case. So it was powerful. I still have them. I have the awards up in my office, and you know, I display them proudly.
So what was behind the successful, I might add, sale of your company?
So that was something that was a couple years in the making, and you touched on in the intro there, you touched on my personal development and all the things that I went through to that end. And when I started doing those things, my appreciation and my enjoyment of my life just amplified, and I started finding all kinds of other things that I was passionate about as well. And I found myself being drawn in different directions than I had been, you know, for the previous, I don't know, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years of owning that business. And it came to a point where I had the thought for a good couple of years that, like, I think it's time to get out of this. I think it's time to do something else. I want to try something new. I had been doing car audio for like half my life. Yeah. By the time I sold that business. So when I eventually did, it was a mixture of wanting to move on to something else, the timing being right, finding a buyer. And it just was one of those things where it was like, I remember thinking about it and trying to decide, is this what I want to do? And I remember thinking there's a fork in the road, you know, there's two paths that I can take from here. One is either continue on with this business the way that I have been. The other one is to go on into something that I don't even know what it is yet. I don't know where that leads. But one thing I know for sure is that continuing on with this business that I'm in now is not going to get me to where I want to be. Right. So once I came to that conclusion, it was a pretty easy decision to go forward.
And so the way I put it is, it seems to me like you had an old new passion that's helping others through your life lessons.
An old new passion.
Like you found that passion, but it's not something that was a new idea to you.
Oh, no, definitely not. Because I had been doing, I see what you mean now. I had been doing public speaking and classes and stuff like that at industry events for 8, 9 years prior to COVID, you know. So I've had a lot of experience and time in helping other people. Yes. All right.
We're going to talk about some of the key moments in your life that you reference in the book. And this is where I want to dig in. But believe it or not, we're at our first break. We're going to be back in just about a minute with Jon Kowanetz. Stay tuned.
You're listening to Winning Business Radio with Kevin Hallinan on W4CY Radio. That's W4CY.com. Don't go away. More helpful information is coming right up, right here on Winning Business Radio.
Have you ever dreamt of being on the radio? Well, now is your chance. Be a radio show guest on the #1 ranked internet radio station and promote you and your business for free. Yes, you heard it, free. Business advertising right here on W4CY.com. Call 561-506-4031 now to get booked on one of our shows. That's 561-506-4031. Get your free advertising now.
And now back to Winning Business Radio with Kevin Hallinan, presenting exciting topics and expert guests with one goal in mind, to help you succeed in business. Here once again is Kevin Hallinan.
We're back with Jon Kowanetz. The book is Life Without Crutches. First, Jon, where's this book available?
So it's available on Amazon. It's also available on the website, which is lifewithoutcrutches.com.
Lifewithoutcrutches.com. Excellent. So I don't know how many of these we even have time for. There are so many seminal moments that you reference. Your parents' divorce, being a 12-year-old seeking approval from, as you call it, the bad kids, the family reunion on Long Island, upping the ante when you got home, the house parties. I mean, there's just so much stuff that to you felt it strongly enough to write about it, and it's pretty compelling. Take us through some of that.
In terms of how.
And by the way, I don't want to dramatize the negative stuff. I want to talk about
it all belongs.
It all fits. It's your story. So take us through some of those most important moments that people will read when they get the book.
Some of the most important moments in terms of how they contributed to where that path led to.
Right.
I mean, I think the most important aspect of all of it was the underlying current of what each one of those, the itch that each one of those events scratched, which was that underlying need for to be noticed, acceptance, approval, all that type of stuff. And that really was one of the beautiful things about going through all of that and doing the therapy and going through AA and all that type of stuff is the way that it really requires you to really dig in deep to who you are and what happened and where that came from. And one of the things that I really realized after going through all of that is just the effect that you noted on my parents' divorce. And it's something so common, right? So many of us go through that.
Right.
And I think one of the major delineating factors in the effect that has one way or the other on the kids of divorce is how well it is explained to them. And so for me, being so young, I was only 7 years old, and when it happened, there wasn't the ability within my family to have that kind of conversation.
And you talked about some of the confusion that you experienced.
Yeah. So, you don't know. All you know is your family is now separated, and you don't know why. No one ever had the ability to explain, here's what happened and here's why it happened, and so that I could make sense of it. So then you kind of draw your own conclusions, and what anybody will tell you is that a child of divorce, especially a very young child of divorce, is always going to assume it's because of them. And as I grew, as I got older, and I remember events in my life that made me feel at that time, I've got a different perspective on it now, but at that time made me feel that I'm not good enough unless I'm something more than what I am. So there was always this desire to be something more than what I am, to get this approval that I had been lacking. So whether that was, like I said in the book, like starting smoking with the bad kids, or like going to parties at my house, like my mom was a single mom. She was working herself day and night to keep us in that house. And there I was throwing these like wild parties because to me, what that was all the other kids thought that I was cool because I was able to give them this place where they could hang out and have a good time and whatever. So it just fed that need, and it scratched that itch of like, finally you're getting the attention and approval that you were looking for before.
All the while you're having other success, right? But you weren't healthy, you weren't satisfied, you weren't whole on the inside. Because you talk about it, how did you got arrested for a DUI?
Yes.
Right. Talk about the impact that had with regard to your parents.
So that happened when I was 23.
By the way, at 23, you were making really good money. You had a good job. You were a homeowner.
Yes, I was. Yeah. So I moved out of my parents' house pretty shortly after becoming an adult. I'm fortunate in that I was always able to command a high wage, for my skills. So I was grateful in being able to do that and being able to move out and start my life and buy a house and all that type of stuff. And I was led by smart people to make those kinds of decisions. So very grateful for that. But I had a lot of really good things going on. And I was building a lot of stuff and things seemed to be going very, very well. But there was still that having spent all of my teenage years, the event that you referenced in Long Island at my grandparents' house, that happened when I was 13, right? So my first drink ever was when I was 13. And from then on, it just kind of became a regular thing to where it was like, this is just how you live. This is just how you navigate life.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a question of, oh, I'm having a bad day, or, oh, something happened. I need a conscious decision to, you know what, I'm just going to have a drink. It was just what I just did. It became normal.
Mm-hmm.
So by that time, even though I was having all these things, all these successful, ventures in life and starting a family and all that kind of stuff, there was still that habit. It just became a part of the way that I lived life. So when it eventually caught up to me and I got, arrested for DUI, and I had to deal with all of that, and I had to go and do the tent city thing in Phoenix, where they make you sleep outside in tents in the middle of the summer, and own up to that with my family, my parents. It was a major gut check and a major blow to the ego, for sure. But I don't know that it wasn't enough to be
right.
The end of that. I kept going.
And there was another one. Another DUI.
Oh, so that one actually was the second one.
That's the second one. Okay.
Yeah, when I was 23, that was the second one. The first one was when I was a teenager. That one was wow, we're really going back here. Yeah, so that one was when I was 17. That one was actually not for alcohol. That was for marijuana.
Okay.
Yeah, but that one did have a very big impact between me and my parents, because that was when I was a teenager. That was when I was still living at home, and that was one of those moments where, from that point on, that did draw a line in the sand, and I had never done drugs ever again from there, because it was like this moment where I realized this is where this type of behavior leads you. And when you do these things that are dangerous and careless about not only yourself and your other people, this is where you end up. But also, this is the effect it has on other people, to see the way that it affected my parents and my siblings and everything like that. But what I always thought was very interesting, and I wrote about in the book as well, is that it was easy to come to that conclusion about something so, back then, illegal as drugs, but alcohol is a different thing, because of the way alcohol is so readily accessible and celebrated and
legal.
It's just normal. Like,
right,
normal. It's like, if you go out and you don't drink, it's almost weird in some ways, and it's just so easily accessible. So it was interesting to me when I stopped, and once I did quit, I stopped and I looked back on those times in my life as I was writing the book. I remember coming to the realization, like, this is so strange that at 17, when I got caught driving while stoned, and I went through all that, I was like, well, I'm done with that. Never doing that again. But alcohol, nope. That just wasn't the same thing. And it was just a very interesting juxtaposition.
So you mentioned that some of these events, they certainly shaped who you are. But to your point just now, they weren't some of these, what others might consider rock bottom events, or certainly negative events, didn't change the negative behavior that you had continued in, right? As you described it. You purchased now your another home, new girlfriend became your wife, baby girl, and as you mentioned, open heart surgery. No one's fault, just a abnormality, right? And she's flourishing today. I know that because I've talked to you. But you found that you were numbing your emotions and your pain. You got to the point where your marriage was failing. And divorce, and a realization that things needed to change. Take us to that moment.
Yeah, so it's like I've come to realize, and one of the things that I talk a lot about in my I do a class at industry events called Cast Off the Crutches, and it's a play on the words of the book, obviously, and the intention there is to share my story and then to help people to identify what their own struggles are and their own bad habits and behaviors that they want to overcome, and then share with them the steps that I took to do it, to try to, help them overcome their own bad habits and behaviors.
Right.
So what I've learned in having done that is that more times than not, you have to, we learn the biggest lessons from our biggest losses and the most pain. So what happened was that as each one of those events took place, it was easy for me to say, okay, well, that was an isolated event. That happened one time. I'm not going to have to pay that price again. The DUI, I paid the fines, I did the jail time, that was done. I wasn't going to have to do that again. When my daughter went through her heart surgery thing, that was done one time and I didn't have to do that again. All these other things, it was so easy to come up with excuses for why that wasn't, it wasn't enough of an impetus to change. But when somebody looks at you and says, you are not good enough anymore, and I don't want you in my life anymore, and I am going to legally separate myself from you, and in doing so, you're losing the house, that you lived in, you're losing half the time that you get to spend with your daughter, you're losing all these different things. For me, that was the point where I really, there's no more running from it. There's no more ways to sugarcoat it or not take accountability for it. This is full on. This is because of what you do and the way that you are, that all these things are happening to you. And so that, in addition to the fact that I had now become a single father, which I had never planned to do, and I was now responsible for this little girl's quality of life for half of her life, the time that she was with me, it was just one of those things where it was like, no more. It's time to change. You cannot do this anymore. I had reached my rock bottom, like I think most people need to do.
Now you're, what's the word? I didn't even want to use, I'm not sure if even substances, because it's not always a substance. Your crutch was alcohol. Yes. There are lots of other kinds of crutches.
Indeed.
Talk about some of those.
Oh man. And that's, what's so incredible. When you look back on things and you see the steps that it took to get to where you're at now. And when you were on that step, you had no idea where it was going to lead. But then when you look back on it in retrospect, it makes so much sense. And when I wrote that book, I know I talked about these other crutches and the way that they play, but I was so aware of what my own one was, that was really the crux of it. That was the big one, right, in my mind. And in the years that have passed since then, and in the workshops that I've done and people that I've talked to, and I've watched people struggle with other things, legitimately struggle with these things, it's opened my mind so much to the many ways that people can become afflicted and cause them to be completely distracted from their life. And it's things as dangerous as alcohol and drugs and gambling, things like that. But then it can also be things as simple as social media and too much TV. And it all sounds so trite, like we all talk about, we're on our phones too much, But what we don't talk about enough is what is happening underneath it. All we talk about is put your phone down, be present in the moment. And it's like, yeah, that's great advice. And it's something that you really should do. But what we don't address enough is what it is that's underlying the surface that makes you feel like you have to do that in the first place. That's what really needs to be addressed. And so for me, one of the most powerful things about this whole experience for me was that moment when, for me, quitting drinking was just getting rid of the substance. It was stopping doing the thing that numbed away the emotions, the good and the bad. But it wasn't doing anything to actually solve the problem. It was just taking away the substance. So what can happen a lot of times, and you may see this if you see somebody quit one thing, they take on something else. They just move on to a new addiction. But when I've seen other people get to the bottom of what was actually driving that behavior, no matter what the addiction is, that's where real change happens.
All right. That's exactly where I want to go. We're going to take our second break right now. We'll be back in just about a minute with Jon Kowanetz.
You're listening to Winning Business Radio with Kevin Hallinan on W4CY Radio. That's W4CY.com. Don't go away. More helpful information is coming right up, right here on Winning Business Radio.
The YP.com website is your local search engine. If you're looking for a good restaurant, it can help you find the right one nearby with ratings and reviews. Or if your car breaks down, You can use the YP app to find the closest repair shop. Or maybe you're just looking for something to do on a Friday night. Well, it has great local coupons for all sorts of things in your area. No matter what, when, or where, if you're looking for something, YP Local Search can help you find it. So go to yp.com or download the app to search local, find local, and save local.
And now back to Winning Business Radio with Kevin Hallinan, presenting exciting topics and expert guests with one goal in mind, to help you succeed in business. Here once again is Kevin Hallinan.
Okay, we're back with Jon Kowanetz, author of Life Without Crutches. Also, I love this, by the way, lead pathfinder for Pathways Coaching and Consulting. Touch on your consulting company, your coaching and consulting company.
Oh man, that is again, I was talking about. It wasn't really a play on words. It's just this is just a part of me, right? When I was talking about the path that leads you to where you are now, it's just so like. Coming to that was just a natural evolution of me, I think, because I had been doing the public speaking, like I was talking about before, and doing the classes at industry events for a long time, before selling my business, before selling my first business. And so when I was thinking about what I wanted to do next, I knew that what I wanted to do was something that I could do anywhere, right? And I wanted to be able to do something that had more of a direct impact on other people and the quality of their lives. Because I didn't feel like, I loved installing audio systems and everything that we did at Handcrafted, but I just wanted to do something that I felt left a better legacy, I guess, maybe is a way of saying. So when I sold Handcrafted and I started thinking about what else it was that I wanted to do, I took a break. I went on a little sabbatical after that happened, and I was hiking up in Canada, and I had this thought, this vision, I was led to see what it was that I was supposed to be doing. And for me, it was always trying to help other people, in those classes and in the public speaking. I love getting up there. I love talking to people. I love sharing my experiences. I loved what it said in the beginning of this show when you were talking about how, or the voiceover was saying, helping people to learn from other people's experiences. That's been like my whole motivation in everything I've done for a long time. So when I was on that hike and I was thinking about what it is that I want to do next with my life, this is like chapter 2. I got really clear on this idea that I had called hiking therapy. Like years ago, I had this idea of hiking therapy because I'm an avid hiker. And when you go out into nature, every time I go out there, I get clear on things. I figure stuff out. When I go with other people, we have conversations. Everybody comes back feeling better, right? It's like therapy for free. So I just had this idea in like 2017. I had this idea that like I should do hiking therapy. And then when I was on this hike in Canada, it just got more clear and more clear and more clear. And I realized that what I want to do, because of who I am, I'm a born entrepreneur, like it's just the way my mind works. I'm constantly thinking about things that I can do. And so as we know, because of what we've talked about, I went through that whole process of being an entrepreneur and building a business, and I lost myself to it. I lost myself in multiple different ways, like so many people do. And I had to fight back to get back my balance and my health and my relationships. And part of that was due to the alcohol, like we talked about. But it's due to that for so many other people as well. So I'm so keyed into the sacrifice that is required by a business owner or a business leader to get to where they want to go. And I'm so keyed into what it feels like to get there and look around you and be like, where is everybody? Why do I feel as badly as I do? Yeah. So the goal, the mission of what I'm trying to do with Pathways is to help business leaders recover the life that they sacrificed in pursuit of their career. And for me, Pathways was just like, it was just a natural progression because it's everything I love about what I've done. I take photos of Pathways. They catch my eye when I'm out in nature and I see something. It's just a thing for me. So it just fit together very well. And when I started thinking about it along those lines on that hike in Canada, I realized my intention and what I'm doing here is to help you and your business get to where you want to go from where you are now, and help you find the pathway to do that.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
And there is contact information. There is contact information for Jon. We'll give you a chance to reach out to him. You began to make changes. You began to identify the problem. And what I think is really cool about this book is that, as I said earlier, it's not a glorification of the junk. It's really a guide to help others identify what their problems are and make some changes. So you start with, I'm going to point, we've got several things to go through, and I'll just kind of drop a thought and you go ahead. How you talk about how to identify the problem.
Mm-hmm.
How do you help people identify the problem?
First of all, I want to say that you're absolutely right. The whole purpose of that book is not to glorify the bad things. It's to I tell my story to help other people try to identify themselves within it, so that they can feel more comfortable owning whatever it is that they're going through. So to help them to identify what the problem really is, something that we do in the workshops and something I do one-on-one when I'm working with people. But the truth of the matter is that they know, we all know what is really holding us back. We know what that thing is. Either people have said something to us about it, we've paid prices for it, like me with the DUI. Like, I knew what the problem was. My ex-wife, she would complain about it, so I knew what the problem was. We just had this clever way of telling ourselves it's not really a problem. So really, the process of helping somebody to find out what their actual problem is when I'm doing a presentation and I'm talking about it and I'm sharing this story and they're in it and they're thinking about their own life. It's, what are you thinking about right now?
Yeah.
What's in your head right now? And that's the thing. And then you dig a little bit deeper in there, because there's always something a little bit more underneath that. But that first thought that you have, that thing that you instantly want to run away from, that's the thing that you need to focus on. And
then you talk about how to identify how life could be without that particular crutch. That's kind of cool.
God, I love that part. It's like the number of times that I encounter the efficacy of this part of this thing is unfathomable. Literally just encountered it very recently. And so the whole idea behind that, so there's two steps that are kind of similar. The first one is, how much worse could your life get if you don't get a handle on this? And the second part of that, the very next follow-up part of it, is, how much better could your life get if you do get a handle on this? And it's the idea there is to create polarity, to pull you toward this better life and away from this worse life by getting super, super clear on the reality. Because the truth is that, especially with our lives the way that they are these days and how distracted and busy we are, it's so easy to just write it off quickly. Oh yeah, well, that sucks. I shouldn't be doing that anymore, and just leave it there. And you're not going to change anything with that kind of attitude. But if you can get really, really clear and honest with yourself about just how much worse things could get for you if you don't fix this, but then also how much better your life could get, it gives you something to push against, and it also gives you something to reach out for, And I think that I know that when you are going through habit change and it's extremely difficult to not go back to where you were, those moments that you can, those glimpses of a life without this thing are what you can hold on to for hope when those moments are hard. So I love that part.
Well, what's cool to me too is you help people figure out why they would want to change for themselves, not because you or somebody else is trying to tell them to do it, right? People change for their own reasons, and that's why I think that's really powerful. Then you help people identify why that negative behavior has continued, sort of the root cause.
Yeah, that's critical. That's like what I was saying before. You can take away the substance all you want, and you're likely just going to find something else to get addicted to. It's not until you uncover the reason why you turned to that substance in the first place that you're going to actually ever really be free from it. Otherwise, you just you're always living your life running. And something that was really powerful for me along this journey was, I went through AA, and I had quit drinking for I don't know, 3 months or so before I stepped foot in an AA room.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't need AA to stop drinking. Maybe it was 6 months actually. I didn't need AA to keep me from drinking. And that's just me, not
Right.
not discrediting the system at all. I
Right.
didn't need it. What I did need it for was to figure out why. And once I did figure it out why, it was like the battle was over. Up until that moment, I felt like I always had to like stay away from it. Like I can't even be around it, but once I understood why I went that way and why I adopted this behavior in the first place, and I healed those wounds, I say something in the book that like when there's no more war to fight, there's no need for weapons.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, you just put them down, put down the weapons, invite the monsters out. You're not trying to beat them back into the shadows anymore. You invite them out, bring them out into the light, see them for what they are, make peace with it, accept all those parts about yourself. And once there's no monster to be afraid of anymore, then
That's powerful.
Thank you.
All right, next, how to find the strength. This is, to me, really important. How to find the strength to make that decision.
That part comes in the sequential order of things, purposefully, because it's like everything that we talk about up until that point is meant to make you really feel what you're going through. If I could have it my way, like if I could do it exactly the way I wanted to do it, I would create like this like simulated life for you to experience with like a 3D headset on or whatever, virtual reality headset on, where you can literally feel and experience what this is going to be. You can experience your rock bottom in every visceral way possible.
Wow.
So yeah, right? Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah.
So if I could have it my way, I would do that. Maybe one day I will. I don't know. Figure that out somehow, so that you can really feel it. But for now, the best thing that you can do, the best thing that I can think of to do, is to really dig in deep and get some substance to that. So all those questions that come before that are intended to really force you to get that substance, so that by the time you get to the point where it's time to make a decision, there's not really a decision to be made anymore. It's going to be so obvious that if you don't make this decision, you are literally choosing a life that is not going to serve you in any kind of good way. So that's really the biggest part of it. And then if you can't, if even that's not enough, honestly, and it's just the truth in my own experience and the experience of witnessing other people, you're just plain not ready yet, and you have to hurt more. And that sucks, but it's true. And I think if most people, if they're willing to be honest with themselves and look at their own lives, they'll be able to look at many, many, many times before they finally did quit something, before they finally lost the weight, before they finally quit drinking, before they finally decided to start reading more, whatever the thing is. There were many times before then that they knew they should have done it, but they didn't do it until the point when it hurt them enough to say never again. So if you're not ready to make the change yet, after going through all of that stuff, you just need to hurt some more, and then you'll be there.
That is right. I think you're right.
There,
right.
Right.
But then you also have the wisdom to suggest a support team.
Yes.
What's your advice for putting together a support team?
That's critical, and that's like something that's a big function of AA. For people to be there and support you along your journey to sobriety. And so you can use that as a support team. You can use friends and family, but I think the important thing that you have to pay attention to is who it is that you are enrolling to be a part of your support team, to make sure that they are going to hold you accountable and be honest with you when they see that you're messing up or not living the way that you said that you wanted to live, but then also that they are living in a way that you aspire to or admire in some kind of way. Should be somebody that is at a place that you want to get to, so that when you interact with them, they can see how they can help you and you can see how you want to get to where they're at. But the most important thing is that we can't do this alone. You know, we can't. We're not meant to do much of anything alone long term. You know, we're tribal people. You know, we're meant to be in herds. You know, and stuff. And we have some things that we have to do on our own, and it's a very healthy thing to be able to be alone. But there's some things that you need other people for, and you should have other people for, and this is definitely one of them. There's a lot of work that needs to be done introspectively, you know, but times when you're feeling weak or you're feeling stressed or like you need a hand, that's when these people that you've chosen ahead of time are the ones that you can reach out to and say, hey man, I'm not doing well. You said you're going to be there for me. And it's so important with so many of these things, the support team, the boundaries, the substitutions. You have to create these things ahead of time when you're in a good mindset, right after you've made the decision that, yes, I'm going to make the change. You're feeling all good, because we all know life is life, and there's going to come a time when you're not feeling good, sooner than later. And it's going to test you. It's going to make you wonder, can I stick to this? And in those moments of weakness is when you're going to be tempted to go back to the path of least resistance for relief. And for your brain, that's going to be alcohol, drugs, TV, Facebook, porn, whatever the thing is, to take your mind away from what hurts. But if you've done the work ahead of time and you've said, when this happens, I'm going to do this instead, you at least have a chance because you've made a plan for what you're going to do when that happens. And then even if you do fail, I just went through this and my advice was, it's not a failure. It's just a data point. People look at setbacks and going out and lapses and whatever as like, well, clock restarts.
Right. I noticed you said that. Right.
Yeah, I failed. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. You got another data point that shows you that when I'm in these circumstances, when I'm feeling this way, here's what I do. Now you can create more substitutions and boundaries around that.
Well, interesting. We have about a minute. Talk about some healthy substitutions and boundaries.
I mean, it depends on what your thing is, you know, like if it's a diet thing, you know, like I had that too. I ate incredibly unhealthy. So instead of having like a bag of candy on my toolbox at work, I would have a bag of almonds or something to that effect. Or if it's a sedentary lifestyle, then your substitution is, you know, deactivate your Facebook, Netflix or whatever the thing is. It's about identifying the things that are going to be a problem for you ahead of time and creating a plan to not have them become that problem for you. So for me, it was like, I wouldn't hang out with certain people for a while I was, you know, learning to get sober, or I wouldn't go to certain places because it's just going to be an unnecessary trigger for me. So I think about the opposite, right, of what your thing is, and let that be the thing you go to. Something healthy. You know what's healthy. We all know what's healthy, you know. Don't need to be told that.
This is very good. Last question. Who, and you can look at this from two perspectives, one perspective or the other or both. Who in the listening and viewing audiences should reach out to you and why? Who in these listening and viewing audiences should reach out to you and why?
Oh, gotcha. So like, I guess who is a good fit for Pathways if they want to, right? Okay. Well, like I said before, the mission statement of Pathways is to help business leaders recover the life that they sacrifice in pursuit of their career. So the person who my particular skill set and experience is most set up to help are business owners, business leaders who've given everything that they've got to create this business or this career that they are succeeding in, and it's doing well or to some degree, you know, it's okay. But they've recognized that they've lost quality of life. They're not happy in this area. They're not happy in that area. Because what I do is a two-pronged approach. There's the personal development side and the professional development side. So I work with you as an individual to help you to overcome whatever your self-limiting beliefs are, your habits, your behaviors, all these things that are holding you back from being the most effective person in your personal life and your professional life. But then I also have a whole other side of the business that works on the business itself, how to be more profitable, less costly, more effective, more valuable if you ever want to sell it one day, that type of thing. So you work on both of those separately, and then when they come together in the business, they can get to where they want to go. So the right person for me is somebody who is a business leader has given a lot to where they're at, and they want to get further. They have goals of where they want to reach, and they're having a hard time reaching those because of personal and professional reasons.
Cool. You've seen the contact information, Jon. We are out of time, sadly. This has been really cool. The book is Life Without Crutches, available on Amazon. Jon Kowanetz is the author. He's a lot more than the book, but get the book. And thank you for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you.
And thank you, everybody, for watching and listening. This is a show about business and business challenges, life challenges, too. If you've got concerns about the growth of your company, feel free to reach out to me on Facebook or LinkedIn at Winning Business Radio. You can drop me a note. Probably the easiest email for now is kevin@winningbusinessradio.com. Our company's Winning Incorporated. We're part of Sandler Training. We develop sales teams into high achievers and sales leaders into true coaches and mentors. We're not right for everybody, but maybe we should have a conversation. Thank you, producer and engineer Juan, for another job well done. Thank you, Juan. Be sure to join us next week. That's Monday, April 8th. We'll do it again with another interesting guest. Until then, this is Kevin Hallinan.
You've been listening to Winning Business Radio with your host, Kevin Hallinan. If you missed any part of this episode, the podcast is available on Talk4 Podcasting and iHeartRadio. For more information and questions, go to winningbusinessradio.com or check us out on social media. Tune in again next week and every Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time to listen live to Winning Business Radio on W4CY Radio, W4CY.com. Until then, let's succeed where others have failed and win in business with Kevin Hallinan and Winning Business Radio.